Okay, with Tzadik Aleph, Amud Aleph, 91a. Right, I believe we talked about the glass versus the earth, shattered glass, the resurrection being compared to broken glass. There was nothing left of the original Keli, versus resurrection being compared to earth, tit, in which there is something left over from the original Keli. We talked about that with respect to the bodies being tameh. Okay. So then we have a couple of stories, some conversations. And we're going to get to stories later that seem to be repeating themselves in today's day and age.
Yeah, with Eretz Yisrael.
Yep.
Claim to the land. There should be compulsory reading for those in the Knesset.
Yeah.
Even if they don't believe it, just to be aware that.
Just to be aware of these. So let's see.
Idea. Yeah. It's very deep. The Gemara probably wouldn't have to spend too much time.
Yeah. We are Amarle. The line starts with the word Achas, Kama Vakama, and then Amarle. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines from the top of the page of 91a Tzadik Aleph Aleph. Yeah. Amarle Ahu Minol Rab Ami. There was a certain heretic who told Rab Ami, Amrisu, you guys claim the Shachvid, those who are lying down, those who have passed, Chaye will live. So he asks, Hahava Vahava Afra. By the time the resurrection comes around, you're looking at earth. Afra Mikachaya, does earth come alive? In other words, the body's already completely decomposed. And I suppose, based on what we explained earlier, this Gemara's question is coming in continuation. The way we explained the previous question, based on the Rebbe's talk, was that the previous two understandings of how resurrection is done, either like a broken glass being blown back together through glass blowing, or like reconstructed clay, and we discussed how the question is whether or not it's a reconstruction of what was, or a completely new body, as it were, which connected to the Gemara before that, where the Gemara was asked, where one of the sages were asked if the bodies return with their clothing or not, as if to say, is it the reconstruction of the old body or is it a new body? So I guess in that line, it's kind of a similar question. He's saying it's earth now. The body's completely decomposed. And does earth live? Amarle, so Ami responded, Emshalach Mashal. I will give you a parable to what this can be compared. L'melech basavadam, to a king of flesh and blood, a human king. Shamal Avadav tells his people, L'chu, go out, abundantly prelatrin, Gedolim, and built me great palaces. The makim at a place, she'ein mayim ve'afar. There's no air, no water, and no earth. I don't know what kind of place that would be. Or no fertile ground, no ground that's not ground that's good to make. Maybe it's a desert, it's a sand. I don't know. Halchu banu, so they went and built it. King said, "Go do it." Liyamim, sometime later enough, the city collapsed. I guess it's built on like sand. There's no proper cement, no proper earth to make cement, and clay, and no water, nothing. So that thing fell apart. Amnu lahem, so the people came back to the king, and Chazu Amr lahem, and the king went back to the people and told them sometime later, Chazru banu ba'oisai b'makim sheish afar mayim. So he said, okay, I'll rebuild the city, but this time do it in the location where you do have proper earth and you do have proper water. Amr lahu, people said, we can't do it. In other words, the first time it failed, so they don't want to do it a second time. So Ka'as aleim, the king gets angry. Amr lahem tells them, when I told you to build a city at a place you don't have proper earth and water to make proper materials, Benisim, you listened to me without asking questions and you built it. Achshav, now, I'm giving you a better possibility to build a city. Allah how much more so? So, end the parable. And the analog is, you're asking about a resurrection because it's building it just from earth. What he's responding to him is telling him that actually the first time man was created, he was created to begin with in such a fashion that he was going to die. Right? There's a famous Bechai, from the moment a person's born, he slowly starts dying. Right? As soon as a person is born, they slowly start to get closer to death. So you're accepting the fact that God can build life, good morning, on a temporary scale. Here, when Hashem is rebuilding life for in the world to come, He's rebuilding it entirely, eternal building. So if Hashem can make life that's temporary, given the circumstances of our world, how the more so when we get to the Messianic era, where all the temporary nature of our world stops to be, certainly can recreate a man. The implication of this analog, I'm suggesting maybe, is that it's a completely new person. The previous ones, it sounded like it was not a new person, but the sage before said that he comes back with his clothing, because the same person, and the previous one.
With the clothing before?
Yeah, that the person returns with his clothing on, and the parable was like
wheat.
The parable was wheat, where you plant.
Which?
When it becomes
Sorry?
sprouts from the ground.
Oh,
So
okay.
what
But not okay.
We're talking about the whole Gemara. We're talking about Tchias Mason. So it would seem from the previous Gemara, we're talking about Tchias Mason, even though it's not exactly because I mentioned then, because the parable there is.
But when we bury, he's not buried with the cloth.
No, with tachlichim, with shrouds.
He comes back with the Perek.
You come back with the same thing you're wearing, right, when you first were buried, but even though it rotted.
Yeah.
Or at least, for us, God willing, we won't have to go there, but for those who have passed 100 years ago, their shrouds rotted. And yet it's going to come back with their clothing. It's a miracle, right? But the point is that they're going to come back the way they went down. Right, which means it's not a new person. It's the rebuilding of the old person. Even though the parable there is wheat, where it sounds like it's new wheat coming forth, but still has a connection to the old one, and that it's coming back with clothing. Whereas here, it almost seems like it's an entirely new body. The parable is, they first built the city on a place that didn't have the proper materials, and therefore it was only temporary. And now they're rebuilding a new city in a place that has the right materials and it's proper. It almost sounds like it's a new city we're building, in the analog, a new person that God's building. I don't know what the ramifications are that. I'm just putting it out there that these parables, even though, in other words, he could have just answered and saying, well, God made a body the first time, that was temporary. He can make a body now the second time, that's not temporary. But he uses this whole analogy. And perhaps what he's alluding to is the fact that it's an entirely new person. Obviously, it has some connection to the previous one, certainly in the neshama aspect.
Oh, it explains over here in the that in Dalit, they're going to use water and the earth, but the thing is, they have to get it from farther, so they have more work. But
Sorry, say it again?
Yeah, he explains it in Dalit, for Lesa. They had to bring water and earth, but from a different place.
Right.
It was more effort. They probably didn't do a good job then. But here Hashem will do the
Right.
water right there, so it's easier.
Either way,
Perspective.
either way, even if you explain it that way, either way, the analogy is clear that the first one is one building and now it's a second building.
Yeah.
That's. I don't know what the applications of that is.
Both with water and earth, just whether it's local.
Yeah, it's just like a detail. But the point is the same, that we're building a new structure here, which implies that's what it seems like when you're building a new body. That's a new body, but one was a temporary nature and one's a permanent nature. Or better still, the world has now come to a place where it's perfected. The materials that God has now, so to speak, are the materials of the post-Messianic state, and thus have a more perfect nature, and thus the body created then is of a permanent nature.
Yeah, Rashi from the second place. The first world was created from nothing. Already has an existing world, so how much more it can build on it.
Okay. Then he adds like the following. And this requires also some analysis as to what's the connection between the first statement that he says and the second statement. First, he gives us an analogy of the cities. The city built in a temporary fashion, and then the city built under the proper circumstances with proper materials that can be that are permanent. Thus comparing the first creation of man and the recreation at the time of the resurrection. But then he adds another element here, and again, the floor is open, but there should be some connection between this and the previous one. Now, if you don't believe, as Rashi said, that God creates from the earth, go out to a valley, and you'll see an animal called achbar. It's a kind of rodent, rat, mouse, something like that. Now, you look at it today, and this animal is comprised of half flesh and half earth. Translating what it says. And lamachar. And if you go back tomorrow and sometime, not literally tomorrow, but you go back sometime later, and hishritz, you'll see it will have morphed into a complete rodent, and that's a kule basa and completely flesh, not partial earth. Okay, so if God takes this thing that's partial rodent, partial earth, and makes it full rodent, then why can't God make a man completely from the earth? Now, Shema Taimar says the Gemara, and perhaps the Rabbi tells us this heretic. Shema Taimar might say this Mamre Ruba, that this morphing of the animal from earth to rodent takes an extended period of time, and the resurrection is supposedly instantaneously, and therefore it's not a good comparison. You might reject and say, okay, that takes hundreds of years, months, whatever, how long it takes a long time, as the Gemara says. But here, you're asking for resurrection instantaneously. So Alei Lahar, go to a mountain. So first it was a valley, now it's a mountain. But Eisham and see there, or Ne'eh and see the Shayayim, that today, Ein Boy Elech Chilazin Echad, there's only one snail. Lamachar, go back sometime later, or the next day. Yarduk Shamim, and the rain will have fallen. And you'll see it's full of snails there. Implying that all these snails sprang forth from the earth. And thus, certainly God can create humans from the earth. So, there are multiple layers to be said here. I'm just going to put out a bunch of ideas to think about. First of all, what's the connection between the first half and the second half? Well, there's a temporary nature, and then the analogy of the temporary versus the permanent nature of the building, and then the connection to these animals. On the surface, the point is, he's saying that even now you have, even today you have you have samples of Hashem creating at least temporary life from the earth, and therefore certainly in the perfected world of Mashiach, where you have a better world, so to speak, you have water and earth in the analogy, then certainly God can reconstruct a more perfect life. It's the first thing to think about. And again, another thing you can think about, Rashi says it takes a week or 2 weeks. That the extended period of time when he first brings the analogy of the rodent, that's partial flesh, partial earth, and then over time becomes a full rodent. Rashi says, and the counterclaim that it takes a week, that it takes a long time, Rashi says a week or 2. One might say that this is like a... this is what it says here. I'm telling you what it says here. It's a rodent and achbar.
The simple explanation for the rational way is that it's a kind of insect that kind of hibernates in the ground, so it appears to be half earth and half flesh.
And then it emerges completely.
It emerges to get rid of it gets rid of the earth.
Or this is a nod to some evolutionary idea of life that emerges from the earth in this evolutionary process, and therefore it says it takes a long time. Maybe.
Well, we'll discuss it because more.
Sorry?
Discuss with Colin as well. This idea of this kind of rodent.
Colin discusses lots of animals that we don't necessarily can identify.
Yeah.
But anyway,
the question is raised. What is it? We'll go through the.
But another question I want to throw out there is, why not skip to the second one? Why not skip straight to the snail? If the snail is a more perfect example, where you go to the mountain and you see one snail, and the next day after it rains you see tons of snails, why not go straight to that one, which more perfectly describes what you're trying to prove, instead of first starting with the ones half-half?
No, because that was the Rashi explains that those are eggs, so it's not such a good proof. The eggs are already there, only analogy. But this is much more convincing. How can an animal half earth and half flesh?
Then the question is in the reverse.
Yeah.
Start with the one with the snails, and then go to the better proof. In other words, if the first proof is better, then why start off with that one?
No, because the first proof is a problem too. It takes too long. That's why he has to.
Either way, it's
either proof has a
just pointing that there's something deeper going on here.
Absolutely.
Another thing to think about is the fact that the rodent, which is half, is in a valley, and the second half, the snails, are in a mountain. There obviously is a diuk here. What's the diuk specifically? The Gemara tells us where it is, mountain or valley. Another thing to think about is the fact that the snail comes dafka after rain. Just telling you that you can see that there's more to the Gemara than what meets the eye, and the floor is open. Perhaps we'll put some thought into this, and we'll see if we can come with something. But I'm just throwing this out there. Think about it, and perhaps.
Also, chilazon, of course.
Sorry.
That's how I was saying. It's used for a mitzvah.
But if here's not what I was talking about, chilazon is a fish. This chilazon is not a fish.
Rashi mentions this. One of them mentions chilazon.
The sheyetzim min hayam. It's okay. It's different, but then how would it be a mountain? Also, question.
No, and then you see when
The fish wouldn't be in the mountain.
They come at 170 years. They come
And climb up to the mountain?
Yeah, climb up. Yeah.
But Steinsaltz translates as a snail. That's why I use the word snail.
Yeah,
but
Russian stands the Chilazin
yeah.
usually means the Chilazin of the.
Chilazin usually means that fish.
Yeah.
But that fish is a fish, and here it's talking about on top of the mountain.
Well, some say it's actually is a snail.
It's a what's it called?
There's a term for it. Yeah.
Amphibious, where it's both in the water and the earth. I don't know.
That's true, but it's like
anyway. Certainly there's lots to be to think about and to dig in here, and I'm just throwing all this out there. Think about it. Okay, now comes the story that leads to the stories that we mentioned before that have relevance to today. Amar le hahu mina l'gvia ben pesisa. There was this heretic, or some heretic, who said the following to a fellow named Gvia ben Pesisa. Gvia ben Pesisa was, as the Gemara will identify soon, a hedjit, which means a simpleton. Obviously, he was an Orthodox Jew, and obviously he was familiar with Scripture, as we'll learn, but he wasn't classified technically as a scholar.
No, it's the hunchback on top of that.
And, as we'll find out in the story, he was a hunchback, and clearly witty too.
Yeah, but also very sharp.
As we shall see. So this heretic said to Gvia ben Pesisa, Ve'lechayin chayver, woe to you, O wicked people, damrishon, that you say, Meisi chayin, the dead will return to life. The chayin, Meisi. Our world operates that. Those that live, die. The Meisi chayin, but those who die, live? Question mark. I mean, look around you. Nothing that dies lives. Everything that lives dies. So you wicked, foolish people thinking that there's going to be a return of the dead. Amar lei, so Gvia ben Pesisa responded, using his language, Ve'lechayin chayver. Woe to you, O wicked one. Damrisen, you see, Meisir loy chayin, those who have died do not come back to life, whereas the loy havu chayu, those that were never alive, the loy havu, those that never existed, chayu are alive. The havu chayu that once was alive, lo koshken, much more so. In other words, you're challenging me and saying I'm foolish and I'm a wicked person for thinking that things that die are alive. The reality of our world is the reverse. The things that are alive die. The reality of our world is that things that never existed come to life. So something that would never existed comes to life in birth. Why can't something that was alive return to life? Where's the challenge? It's an interesting... If we're going to go along with this line, we might suggest here that actually he's saying that it's a reconstruction. Don't consider it like birth. Birth is something that never existed coming to life. Here it's something that was alive returning to life. In other words, that there is a connection to the previous body. Suggestion, perhaps, and it's the flow in the Gemara here, going back and forth to the west, whether or not a resurrection is a continuation from the old body or is a new thing entirely. He seems to be saying it's a connection, which is why it's how much more so from birth, whereas birth is a new body and this is a reconstruction of a body. Perhaps. Amalei, so now the heretic responds, Chayva Kardisali, you're calling me wicked, even though he earlier called him wicked. The heretic called Gvia ben Pesisa wicked. And when Gvia ben Pesisa responded, he used his language, calling him back wicked. But the person's taking offense. It's classic. I offend you, you offend me back, and then you start blaming me for offending me. That's how it goes. Nobody's ever met people like that, ever. Anyway, so he said, you're calling me wicked. Ika mina be'itnavach upshitana lokumta minach. If I'd be standing, if I were able to, I would kick you and straighten that hunchback of yours. On my leg. So Gvia ben Pesisa responds, Imata Oisakain, if you're successful at doing that, I'll call you a professional doctor, and I'll pay you a lot of money for that. You'll have been the first plastic surgeon. I'm kidding, he doesn't say that, but in other words, the curse he gives him,
chiropractor.
Yeah, he twists the curse he gives him into a blessing. He says, you're threatening me you're going to straighten out my hunchback? Yeah. Go ahead. Gesundheit. I'll pay you for your services. And story of Gvia ben Pesisa. Now, having raised the issue of Gvia ben Pesisa and his wit around those who would debate Yiddishkeit, the Gemara now raises another number of other debates that he had, and this, as I mentioned, in Rabbi Gimpel's words, should be mandatory reading in the Knesset. And it reads as follows.
Stories are they're very the same arguments.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's contextual history to this story, which I'm not fully aware of, but I'll just tell you what it says here. And given the names, I can tell you around what era it is, and I think I know I think I have the context, but you're welcome to correct me. Talmud Rabbanan, our sages taught in Megillas Tainus. Megillas Tainus is a book that actually predates the Gemara and the Mishnayos. It's the first text. It's the first Jewish calendar. It's the first Hayom Yom, if you will. It's a Jewish calendar that goes through the dates of the year and identifies different items that happen on different days. And the reason why it collects these things is to tell you whether or not either it's a day that a person should increase in tachnun and fasting, or it's a place that a person cannot do a tachnun or fasting. This is actually, that book is the first place where Hanukkah is written. Unless you're of the view, like Saadia Gaon, that Megillas Antiochus came, I think it's Saadia Gaon, which says Megillas Antiochus is written right away after Hanukkah. But it's possible Megillas Tainus is the first mention of Hanukkah. It predates the Gemara by the Mishnah almost by 100 years or so. And most of the dates of Megillas Tainus have been suspended once the destruction of the temple happened. Until the destruction of the second temple, all these dates were observed, either as minor holidays where no tachnun was said, or as minor sad days where extra tachnun was said, or maybe even fasting. So that's this Megillas Tainus. So it says as follows: the Esim V'Abba Nisan, on the 24th day of Nisan, Isnatlu Dimusinaim Yehuda V'Yerushalayim. The usurpers were removed from Yehuda and Jerusalem. It would seem to me that this is maybe means Alexander got rid of the Persians. I don't know what it means. I'm not sure exactly what this means. You know the history, the historical context? I believe it's referring to Alexander removing the Persians, because it's the context in a moment.
The story here, people want to claim the land of Israel belonged to them against the Jews. And that's what happened. And then he proved that the land belonged to the Jews.
Okay, it's Alexander defending the Jewish people's right to live there, even though he remained king, but at least he gave them somewhat, he gave them some autonomy.
Yeah.
Meaning the occupiers preceding Alexander were the Persians, so that's why I assumed it's the Persians.
The Samaritans as well, and the people from the 10 tribes.
They were very briefly there. The Samaritans of the 10 tribes were even much earlier.
I mean, the ones who placed the 10 tribes, the non-Jews, the Samaritans, they also want to claim the land of Israel.
That's Yehuda. I guess it's only the north of Israel, not the south.
Yeah.
The south is covered by the Persians.
No, they were there with the Persians. Also had them there. They left them.
They let the Samaritans rule. Okay. At any rate, Alexander liberated Israel and allowed the Jews to live there.
Complained about the building of the temple, for example, Achashverosh.
Yes, that right. But anyway, this is a reference to Alexander. Alexander liberating Jerusalem, liberating Eretz Yisrael, and allowing the Jews to live there freely. And this obviously precipitates Hanukkah by a few generations.
Yeah.
Alexander was very friendly with the Jews, as we'll learn. But later, some of his after he died and he split his kingdom to the Assyrian Greeks, I think they were called that, the Assyrian Greeks controlled Israel, they already started to impose Hellenism on the Jews. But as we'll learn, Alexander was very nice to the Jews. So, Alexander liberates Yehuda and Yerushalayim, he liberates Israel and allows the Jews to live there, and that's why it's a minor holiday, the 24th day of Nisan. Jews don't fast, at least during this period when Megillas Tainus was in effect. The Gemara goes on to say as follows: when the, I suppose, Africans arrived, Lodin and Yisrael, and they wanted to lay claims against the Jewish people. Lefnei Alexander Moikdon, Alexander's Moikdon, in the presence of Alexander of Macedon, otherwise known as Alexander the Great. So they came before Alexander the Great, and Amrullah, and they told him, Eretz Canaan Shalanuhi, the land of Canaan, otherwise known as Israel, belongs to us. The verse reads, Eretz Canaan Lugvuloisa, that the verse reads, the land of Canaan to its borders. What their claim is, that the Torah refers to Eretz Yisrael as the land of Canaan. The Canaan of Oisin Dahanu Inchihavi, and Canaan are our ancestors. They're talking about themselves in the third person. It's their ancestors. In other words, us, the Africans, Canaan is our ancestors. So when the verse refers to Israel as the borders of Canaan, it's ours.
There's one tribe left, the Girgashim left there, Israel.
Sorry?
And they settled in Africa. These are people making their claim. The land belongs to them. They're one of the 7 tribes.
Girgashi?
Yeah, the Girgashim, yeah. They fled, they didn't fight with Yeshua, they fled to North
They left
Africa.
out.
Yeah. Now they claimed the land. One of the Arab claims, actually, this Gemara, they claim they're the original descendants of Canaan. Therefore, the land belongs to them.
There are going to be a few claims that come up.
But the truth of the matter is, it's wrong even historically, because Canaan was from Ham, they're African, and the Palestinians are Semitic, or even from Bosnia. But even so, they still make that lie as well. That's one of the claims they make.
So Gemara is like this: Amrlahu.
So that comes the proof. It belongs to Israel.
Amrlahu. So Gavi ben Pesisa lachachamim. Gavi ben Pesisa. This non-scholar, this witty non-scholar, well-read and witty non-scholar, hunchback, we mentioned before. So he went to the sages and said as follows: "To new leader Shos, allow me, please, with your permission, and I'll go over Adoniman, and I will counterclaim with them Lefnei Alexander Smokton in the present before Alexander of Macedon. Why me? If they will win me, Amru, you guys can say, Hedit Shibanu Nitzachtem. Big deal, you guys won the argument. You won against a simpleton. So you don't have to take any blame. If I do win them, Amru Lahem, you can tell them, nothing to do with the representative, but Torah's Moshe Nitzachtem. It was Moshe's Torah who defended you, who won the case morning, and no reason to give me any credit. So this already tells you what kind of person he was. Besides for being witty, besides for being well read, obviously, he first of all, he was brave. A number of times in Fabrengens, when they would talk about the issues of Eretz Yisrael, they would make reference to this story, and they would talk about how it doesn't take you don't have to be a scholar, you don't have to be one of the sages, even a simpleton, even someone who's a regular politician, not of a religious nature, can also make claims from Torah. Right? He sees that there's an opportunity here. He sees that the Jews are in need of a voice, so he's going to go take the voice. And not only does it with his humility. If it falls, okay, so big deal. I'm a simpleton. And if it wins, you don't have to give me credit. It's the Torah who does it, and if it was somebody else, it would have been the same Torah. It's a very beautiful personality.
It's the good UN representative.
Sorry?
This is a UN representative. UN.
He takes the fall if he loses, and doesn't take the credit if he's successful.
And he speaks in front of non-Jews, so it's like they have UN, but a proper Torah-based UN.
Recently, we had such a thing. Recently, there was a video of Danny Danon. Danny Danon's his name? You didn't see this video?
That's right, he self-talked like a man.
Took out took his yarmulke, put it on his head, took out the Bible, read passages, and said, "This is our claim." It's a beautiful thing. This is mamish like Gvim Pesisa.
That's the way to do it.
That's when Ben Gurion did to the English.
Ben Gurion did it also many years ago. And he said, "This Bible. This is our test. This is our contract."
This is our contract.
Yeah.
This is our deed.
It's our deed. That's our deed. So, Nosson letter shows the sages granted Gvim Pesisa permission. And he went V'doniman, and he went to counterclaim with them. Amar Lahem, and he told the Africans, where are you bringing your proof from? Amar Lahem, they said from the Torah. Amar Lahem, which by the way at this point already, this already is a lesson. It's the foundation. It's the first mistake, assuming that the claims of those who are against us are political, territorial. It's not. It's religious. It's number one. Where are the counterclaims coming from? Torah. More broadly speaking, it's the religious claim that they have. And when you assume that their claim is political or geographic, and you start working on that terms, you've already lost, because you missed the point of the claim. So it's the first thing he asked them is, where's your claim from? Let's argue on your terms. Your terms are religious, your terms are from Torah? Okay, let's pull out the books. Amalahem, so he responded, I will not bring you proof, nothing other than Torah. In other words, I'm going to argue on your terms. Don't confuse the issues and start bringing from here and from there. You're arguing Torah, you're arguing religion. I'm going to respond with only Torah and religion. I'll bring you a proof nowhere other than Torah, on your terms. It's not like he comes to them and says, Torah is true, listen to it. What do you believe in? You believe in Torah? Well, then here's what it is. Because that's always where it's going to go anyway. But it gives you first of all, it's tactic and debate. Don't just present your argument. First, find out where their argument coming from. If you don't know where they're coming from, then you're talking over each other and past each other. So first of all, where are your arguments coming from? One. Number two,
Know thine enemy.
and realize that their arguments are coming from a religious Torah perspective, not from somewhere else. And then you can respond to that. So he says, I'll bring you a proof from Torah. Shneimar, as the verse reads. The verse reads and says, this is to Noach, as you're making for a reference to earlier. Vayomer, and Noach says, Ar Canaan Eved Avodim. Cursed is Canaan, slaves to slaves. Yil Echav, they will be to his brothers, meaning Cham will be to Shem and Yafes. So, says Gevia Bepesisa, Eved Shekana Nechasim, a slave that goes and buys property. Eved Lemin, who does a slave belong to? The Nechasim Lemin, who does the property belong to? To your master. Moreover, how many years have you not been our slaves? The verse said that you're supposed to be our slave. And how many years have you been our slave? And how many years haven't you been our slave? So not only do you have no claim to land, because even if you got the land, it's ours, because you are our slaves. But moreover, you haven't worked for us many years, so you owe us hundreds of years of labor. Amalahem, so Amalam Alexandrus Malka, so now they call him Malka, not Magdan. Before they called him Alexander of Macedon, now they call him Alexander the King. Anyway, interesting note. So Alexander of Macedon, the king tells the Africans, respond to Giviba Besisa, Amruloi. So they said to Alexander, give us 3 days, let's investigate. They gave them the 3 days, Botku, they checked, they did their investigation, they couldn't find any response. Miyad, Baruchu, they right away ran away, and they left behind in Israel. So they say in their fields, Kashen Zeruis, that are already been planted, the Karmeim and their vineyards, Kasheno Kutuas that have already been planted. But Oisa Shana, in that year, Shmiyas Oisa, was the 7th year, was Shemitah. So the Jews entered into these farms that were already planted, so they had food to eat. If they hadn't planted, they would have arrived, they couldn't plant anything, they'd have no food. So not only did they get the land, they got the produce as well. End of story number 1. God willing, tomorrow.
They were owed anyway, then.
They were, exactly, that's because a reference to the fact that they were owed for all the years of lack of slavery. God willing, tomorrow, more such stories with the Egyptians, with other countries who have very similar claims and similar counterclaims.
When you have a debate with someone, if he's debating on religious grounds, don't debate him on political grounds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because what it's saying is that you don't have a religious answer.
That's
right.
On the other hand, if he's debating you on political grounds, so you have, if you're going to go to religious grounds, he's going to say, wait a minute, so you have no argument on political grounds?
Right.
That's why. So you're running to the Bible.
So he starts with, what are your claims?
Right. So
your claims are Torah. Now I'm going to argue from
political
Torah.
argument, know your religious argument, so you can fight him on his terms.
Right.
Otherwise, it looks like you're trying to
divert. Yeah.
Before he
Erwin Kotler taught me that a long
He's
time.
right.
before he makes his claim, he asks them, where are you arguing from? And then he says, okay, you're arguing Torah, I'll respond with Torah. Yeah.
According to your reason, right? Argument. According to your own logic, if you hold
Here's
like
your-
this, what about this case? Yeah. You say, if I bring my own
Have
logic.
a wonderful day, everybody.
But when you have